Welcome back. Now, as earlier promised, tonight we debut our first episode of the Dialogue KE as we discuss on the state of the nation. You also can be part of this by sending us your views via social media handles at HopeTV_KE on Twitter and at HopeTV Kenya on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube at Hope TV Kenya. Now, in studio, I'm joined by Erick Mukono, who is an economist and a political analyst, and Tony Towet, an advocate of the High Court. Karibuni sana, gentlemen.
Asante, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, Moses Kuria has been top of the news this day and part of the weekend regarding the remarks he made yesterday. You know, following the expose by Nation Media Group concerning the cooking oil scandal expose. I mean, let's begin by Erick. What's your take on that?
I don't know why Kenyans are surprised. This being Moses Kuria, I expected it. And the problem is that...
I mean, what do you mean when you say you expected?
I mean, it is not the first time that he's doing this, Ken.
Yeah?
I mean, we have historical data of sentiments he has made especially to the Nation Media Group. He has not been very kind to them. But even that said, him being a state officer, there's a level of responsibility that we should have him carry along. And the sentiments he made, I think I support the Kenya Editors Guild on the statement they released, and I stand with the Nation Media Group that those are not sentiments that should come from a state officer of his caliber. And so I joined the Kenya Editors Guild to also ask for an apology on behalf of the media, because we have the freedom of the media. And when most of the cases and most of the exposés and most of the corruptions that have been aired have come from the media. And so when you try to shut down the media, you're doing Kenyans an injustice. You're not just doing the media an injustice, you're also doing Kenyans an injustice. Because if we shut them down, then we will not know the kind of rotten things that are happening in government. I mean, 6 billion is a lot of money, you know? And for me, I think Moses Kuria owes us an apology as Kenyans, and not just the media.
All right. Tony, do you think CS Kuria owes us an apology?
First of all, I will not talk about whether there is an apology to be given or not. First of all, we should look at where he comes from. I mean, if you look at the trend of things over the past, let's give it a year, before the electioneering period, after the electioneering period, you'll be able to discern only one thing. That, you know, in as much as we want to castigate Moses Kuria because of whatever it is perceived he has done, yet at the same time, we do not want to talk about the bias that is affecting the media in itself. I think we are scoring a different point. We are not really coming out as a populace that want to solve the problem. We are coming out as a population that is hanging on ropes, you know, like every other time there is a mistake, you want an apology. An apology is best for defamation matters. But now, in this one, I believe Moses Kuria is going to sue NMG. They're going to sue NMG because it's a defamation issue. It is not what he said, actually. It is about what he wanted to say, what NMG said about him. And now, in that rivalry of getting back to each other, very soon we are going to hear about a good case.
Okay, let's shift focus from NMG. I mean, we've seen the Kenya Kwanza government since they got into power, and more so the deputy president. He has been saying time and again that the media was part of Azimio. Up to now, I mean, it's quite unfortunate that the media houses have been put in one bracket.
Yeah, that is the problem, because I do not believe that we should perceive all media stations to be doing what the other guys are doing. There are some media stations that are sober, that, you know, even during the electioneering period, we could not see the sidestepping of, or I would put it as, you would not have seen them coming out strongly in words or coming out strongly in perception about how things should be. To me, I think that the best thing that we can do, apart from the role that the media plays in making sure that there is the democracy it comes out in a good way and also informs people, as my friend has said, informs people of things that are going on in the government, outside the government. I do not think for a second that it is still the role of all the media houses, or I believe that it's still the role of all the media houses and the managing guild to be able to also, of course there are rules to compel those who are getting out of the bracket of journalism to misinform people. You have seen over time and again that there are media stations that have completely gotten out of mark. They have moved from supporting legitimate or I will say they are moved from giving good information to trying to shape opinion, which to me is getting out of hand from the law itself.
Yeah, Eric,
Can just before we continue, Wakili is trying. I don't know. He might have been with Moses Kuria this evening somewhere because he's trying to, And I'm trying to think. He's saying that Moses Kuria is going to sue the Nation Media Group for defamation. For what defamation? Because the Nation Media Group is just bringing to us exactly what is there. And if Moses Kuria has an issue with the Nation Media Group and what they have aired and the expose they ran yesterday, then we have other avenues for Moses Kuria to go and raise some of those issues, with the Nation Media Group. And by the way, 6 billion, this is taxpayers' money. 6 billion, and I am very glad that you never ran the tweet here, because this again is a Christian station, and it was a very bad tweet. We have, those are brilliant minds that are working within the media stations.
But Wakili argues that
you are a brilliant mind, and you cannot be whatever Moses Kuria said.
Wakili has argued that Moses Kuria should be the one suing Nation Media Group.
For what reason? This is just an expose. If you're not comfortable with it, then we have other avenues, and not going on the media and calling them names.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think the CS is learning from his bosses? We have seen the deputy president talk the same about the media.
I think it comes out from I told you, it is what the media is doing that is getting these strong opinions from our leaders. And for the position of our deputy president, I think he's just relating what has really been biting everybody at the seat. I mean, you are here, you are the leader. You of course, most of the leaders, they depend on this good repute. And the good repute really informs whether you are going to sail in getting votes, and getting these leadership positions. So much so that when there is something like that expose, that, it has not, there is no evidence that NMG has placed on the table. It has not proved these allegations in a court of law. And our Evidence Act says that whoever alleges must prove. Mm-hmm. And if you have put forth allegations that you cannot really substantiate, then it damages reputation of a person who is of a good high standing, like our CS.
But you can tell from the body language, if the story was not, let's say, true, he will not have been bothered as much. Exactly. But you saw how he spoke yesterday, with a lot of bitterness, with a lot of anger, saying that they are going to pull out any advertisement from the Nation Media Group. I mean, if it wasn't true, would he have acted the way he acted yesterday?
I wouldn't want us to take this out of context, because basically Moses Kuria is human, just as us. And the same,
Oh,
it's
I
true.
don't agree. I don't.
Moses Kuria is just as human as you. And we are prone to reactions sometimes when, you know, explicit information gets outside there that maybe you do not have any hand in it.
But you see, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, integrity, it talks about how state officers should conduct themselves.
Exactly.
You know, these are all CS.
I agree.
Yeah?
I agree with state officer apart. I agree with how they are supposed to conduct themselves in public or in private. But I do not for us.
He himself is an advocate of the High Court. You cannot be a bookshelf advocate. So you know some of these things,
Yes.
and you know Moses Kuria, according to the Constitution and Chapter 6 of what Ken raised, that's not the behavior of a state officer. So I just want you to agree first that some of the things he said yesterday are not words that should come from a high-ranking state officer and somebody who represents the country in very high-end meetings. I am even embarrassed to think Moses Kuria is a cabinet secretary of trade in this country.
He
And
is.
even to think that he was sitting in a very high-level meeting today with the EU. You know?
Which meeting has brought Kenya a good relationship in terms of trade with the EU?
No, but you cannot be bringing investment while you are at the same time stealing and evading tax and taking away money, the same money that you're trying to bring in. That is the whole thing the expose was
Well,
about.
those were allegations, so they are yet to be...
To be
So
substantiated.
Let's put them
Yes.
as allegations. He never
Exactly.
actually
And in
told,
the
so they are
coming weeks,
allegations.
you're going to see, of course, it's an expose, and an expose is just a beginning of us trying to probe this whole thing. And so in the next few weeks, you're going to see, we're going to prove whether it's true that Kenya has lost, whether the taxpayers have lost the 6 billion NTV is alleging or not. You know, so we didn't really have to go to that extent that Moses Kuria would call very competent people.
The truth lies behind the truth here lies behind you know Moses Kuria, NMG, and other bodies. I do not believe for a second that NMG had any concrete information, had any concrete evidence against the CS. So when the media that is supposed to be telling us about democracy is usurping functions of other state corporations, like let's say even court, court has that mandate to look at the evidence placed at the table and make a ruling on it. That is when now we can say that there is a bit of some truth. Basically, when the evidence is juxtaposed with whatever the occurrence, I tend to believe that media houses should not usurp power of other institutions of government, like the courts, like the DCI, who are going to look for this evidence, table them in a court of law, so that we can be able to concretely stand and say, this is what has happened.
Then what happens to the freedom of media when it comes to reporting?
Exactly.
Because you see, as a media, we are the watchdog. So
Yeah.
anything else is actually PR, public relations.
Yes.
So when you call out the government, they react in this way. I mean, where is the freedom of the media in this?
I believe freedom of the media should not be seen in that narrow way. Freedom of the media comes from it's the media that was able to media has brought revolutions. Media has been able to educate people. But where I fault journalism sometimes is I fault it where it becomes a populist thing, where instead of doing their work of bringing information, feeding it to the people, they now dig so much and try to bring things on the table that have not been substantiated at all. And in this area that they are trying to venture into, it's making things not good. at all, because they are going,
Right.
they are going to be fighting with the leaders. They are going to get massive lawsuits, because that is a massive lawsuit that is coming.
Ken,
All right.
I think the media is under attack, and we must agree with that. I know Wakili is not going to agree with me, but I can tell you without an inch of doubt that with the current government, the freedom of the media is under attack. And when sentiments come from high-ranking officers such as the deputy president that the media is on
Siding.
Azimio, is one-sided within the Azimio, then
What will you say?
I feel
Let me just ask
that
you,
is not-
sincerely, let me ask you, what is your perception about how the things have been run? I mean, before the electioneering period, during and after.
I mean,
What is your perception about, how some media houses were actually, you could find they are anchoring an event of Azimio, anchor it for like 10 minutes. Then they bring in UDA and then they rush it out. And then
you know, Ken, these guys are still bitter. These guys are still bitter. This guy is evidently, this is Kenya Kwanza. They are still bitter about we are done with the
Okay, are you in the Kenya Kwanza?
And
I want to say,
allegations
I want to say that
it's
those are
true.
just allegations.
No, it's true.
Okay, I know this topic, we're not going to finish it right now.
Let me just say something very, very important, Ken. That the president has, and the deputy and his deputy have been crying about accountability within government, and they've been reaching out even to the opposition and saying that we want you to hold us accountable of what we're doing in government, And the same thing, the media, one of the purposes of the media is to hold the government accountable. And so when they hold the government accountable, then it should not be an issue, They should take that positive, correct where they should correct, apologize where they should apologize, and then we just have a good country and move forward.
All right. Okay, let's move on to the next topic.
But
Jubilee
can I
Party.
say one thing before you move on?
A minute, please.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
You see,
And then I will also ask for
No,
a minute.
not really, not really.
you see, when we resort to para-constitutional or extra-constitutional ways of solving disputes and airing things out, I think that is where we miss the point. If at all, of course, I know that the other faction of the government, the opposition, they have goodwill of the people. But now, when you resort to extra-constitutional ways of resolving your issues, using means that are not grounded in the Constitution, using means that are not grounded both in the traditional concept of everything, and then you want to say now that this is how you want the government to go, right? But now you are not using things that are recognized by the laws of the country to solve these issues. It
Let me
becomes
just
a
conclude
problem.
that statement for you, that Moses Kuria's actions and statements are enclosed within the Constitution, and they are protected within the Constitution. That is exactly what he's
All right,
trying to mean.
gentlemen, let's move on now to the next topic of discussion. We've seen the Jubilee Party. Once it was the former ruling party. It was once a big party in the country.
Yes.
President Uhuru Kenyatta was the head, was the party leader, and we've seen in the recent past, the party is being fought for. We have one faction, Jeremiah Kioni, and the other one by Kanini Kega. And actually today, the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal barred the Jubilee Party, faction led by Yala Member of Parliament Kanini Kega, from leaving Azimio la Umoja. I mean, what's happening with the once famous big party of the country, Jubilee?
No, I tend to believe that the wars of Jubilee whoever caused it is really smiling right now. Because you remember, this was a party that really, a lot of parties were broken, and then they came together to form this Jubilee. But at this time when they were making this party, I mean, many people, they placed their political life there, even their finances, and even their support base. But now, when you come and you want to take away such an investment from someone, they always find ways of coming back to you. because they will come back to you because you probably thought that you were doing a political strategy that is going to, of course, help you later, which, of course, it didn't help anyone who was doing it. The main problem that I see is that it is not even in the constitution or the party constitution or the Political Parties Act that is the problem. No. What is the problem majorly is the leaders that get to the helm of these parties. Once they get there, they want now to bring a coercive influence and want to rule like, this party was not, first of all, something that they talked with someone else and they were able to formulate something and to make such a huge party.
So, Wakili, legally, the Jubilee Party, who is the SG? Is it Kioni? Is it Kega?
Oh.
Kenyans are really wondering now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you see, even in the media as we report, we actually tend to not use the word SG as we refer to Kioni or Kega because of the dispute. I mean, legally, as a lawyer, as an advocate of the High Court.
Surely, you know these things have been before the Political Parties Tribunal. They've been in the High Court. And I think all of us have been able to appreciate how things have turned out. To appreciate, I mean, I've been able to understand how things have come out. But to sincerely say this, we are a country of the rule of law. We follow the law, basically. So in a scenario where there have not been any what do we call this? There is this meeting they had.
The NDC.
Yeah. We have not had an NDC since 2021 or 2022. An NDC that's supposed to be... So this democracy now is even down in the political party. You want us as the country to have democracy. But the governing units, that is the political parties, do not have any... I have not seen any political party that has been doing these NDCs where they're supposed to do meetings, agree on, your term is lapsed, but you still want to stay there.
All right. Erick, let me pick your mind on this. Many UDA MPs today, even the president, they were actually part of the Jubilee Party.
Yes.
Right now, we've seen the Jubilee...
Including the person who was seated just next to you.
He's just said the allegations, so I'm not going to say that.
No, I have evidence that he's a member of UDA. Yeah,
do you think Kuria, not Kuria, but Kioni and Kega actually fighting a battle for other people?
First
I want to say on this, yeah?
I want to say that it's a shame to see whatever is happening within the Jubilee Party. This having been a ruling party at some point. And it is true that we have a force behind Kanini and Kioni.
The same way it is true, we have a force behind Murathe and Kioni. The same way you say there is a force here, there is also a force the other side.
Exactly. And just to also put it very categorically, that the force behind Kanini is the government. Kanini, Sabina, the government, and this guy is Advocate Towet. He is part of that group as well. And then the other force is Uhuru and Raila.
But the thing is, you see, even the people in the UDA camp, they say the Jubilee Party is dead. Why are you fighting over, quote unquote, a dead party? What is the interest in that party?
We have funds. We have members of parliament who are representing, and their vote is needed in parliament, and and all these things. So it is not really a dead party because it receives funds. Again, they are positioned within the Azimio party also counts, Azimio coalition also counts. So it's really not a dead.
Jubilee is not a dead party.
Yes, and that is why Advocate and his team is.
I don't see the life that Jubilee has. Life of Jubilee went away when.
Then why are you trying to fight to try and forcibly take them into government?
You see the ruling party. If you see the MPs that they have, if you see we are talking about parties, we are not talking about the coalitions. If you see the ruling party alone, if you now put it with that, with the emblem of KK, Kenya Kwanza, these guys are able to pass bills in parliament if they want.
Yes,
But
after
now,
you actually
Talking about bills in parliament.
guys from other parties. No, he's trying to talk about the tyranny of numbers that they didn't have, and you know what they did.
All right, talking about numbers and yeah, so let's talk about the finance bill. Tomorrow the MPs are gonna make their final vote when the bill will be on its third reading stage.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen members of parliament from Azimio. Many of them never voted, you know, in the second reading. Some of them were absent, and Kenyans really wanted them to make a vote regarding this. We've seen many issues regarding the housing levy, and I mean, it's been back and forth. The government saying we have to, you know, tax you, either it's a tax or levy. There's a confusion concerning that. I mean, what's your take on all this finance bill, Eric?
The finance bill is very oppressive from how I have looked at it and some of the sections I have read. Let me just give you an example of the turnover tax they are talking about on the sales. They are saying that they are going to increase the tax, the turnover tax, from 1% to 3% for sales between 500,000 to 50 million, okay? This is down from 1 million. So they have lowered the bracket from 1 million to 500,000. What does this mean? Now, this government has been riding on the Mama Mboga and Boda Boda guys narrative. This means that a Mama Mboga who wants approximately 1370 on a daily basis is going to part with around 411 shillings from the turnover tax, because when you try and do your math on the 1370, you multiply it by 12 months, it's going to be around 500,000. So Mama Mboga is actually in the turnover tax, bracket. So they have again come for the Mama Mboga who they have been trying to defend. You see?
Yeah. Wakili, do you think it's oppressive, the finance bill, as Erica said?
I think the bill is balanced, because the bill, at the same time, what he's saying about turnover tax, that is alleging to be able to overtax, you know, some people. At the same time, government has given amnesty in other things, like, you know LPG.
Ask him to talk about helicopters and choppers. The 16% VAT that was there on the import of helicopters has been.
We will get there. The reason, I think riding on misinformation is not really a good thing, because the main reason that tax was taken out is because flight companies flight companies were no longer servicing their flights here in Kenya. The reason why it was taken down is because every other time you get spare parts from outside the country, you know, before you even give to that engineer to make your plane, it's already having tax, it's already expensive, and you know, people started saying we will go to Tanzania or Uganda to service our flights.
So the question that Wanjiko is asking, I mean, how many planes, how many helicopters
Yes.
do Kenyans own? How many Kenyans own helicopters, that is, if I can rephrase the question, compared to vehicles and buses?
Yes, there are quite a number, but you know, the government is looking at the end goal, because you know, there are a lot of engineers who have gone to school, just like me and my colleague here, who have gone to school, did this engineering for aeronautical engineering, and then just for them to be in the country, just for them for us to be doing this brain drain. I mean, we take people to school just for them to be hired by, you know, the US, you know. But the main thing that will happen in this sector is, you know, it is going to bring revenue to the government.
Okay, let's talk about the housing levy, because I'm seeing my director telling me that we need to wind up. I mean, many Kenyans have really talked about this. I mean, we don't want houses. We want food. We want jobs. I mean, I know the president has said that the 200,000 houses that are going to be built every year will create 1 million jobs. But how feasible is that?
Wakili is going to defend this housing so much, but he's going to sweat here like P.S. Hinga as he tries to defend that. Let me tell you, Ken, why these guys are not very genuine. You know, we began with a 3% fund, housing fund. Now, when I recently after the amendment and all that, to Kimani Kuria, he said, now, this is not going to be a fund. It's actually going to be a tax, you know? And they say, you know, a fund is refundable, okay? But now, it is a tax, which every Kenyan must pay, including Wakili, who probably has a 3-bedroom in Kamulu. You know? Again, they are saying that this housing thing, I am actually calling it a pyramid scheme because it's just a way of stealing money from Kenyans. Now, just in case I am arrested after this, at least I have Wakili here who's going to defend me in court. Please don't leave me.
As long as you can pay legal fee, we will talk.
And don't tax it.
No, tax is a must, you know. Tax is the lifeline of the country.
So the reason why they're saying they're going to create employment with this housing thing. But this Mujengo business it is actually not sustainable. What we need for our employment and to create employment for our young people is create a conducive environment for investors to come in and invest. You know? Bring in investors. Don't tax the country into prosperity. It has never worked.
Actually, CS Kuria, let's bring him on this. He was actually on the interview with a different media station. He actually said that the governors are going to handle the whole housing plan.
The whole housing thing. Yeah, actually, it's actually, it's Muskuria who said that. But that aside, when we talk in line of what my colleague is saying about, you know, what is the feasibility of this housing project, I'll call it a project. You know, government is a stakeholder in housing. Mm-hmm. And because it is a stakeholder in housing, it has to play a part in making sure that the prices of houses outside here do not hit the roof like we see. A 1-bedroom is going for up to let's say 4 million. Mm-hmm. on the highest.
That is Karen, where he lives. Where we live.
It is true. It is true. If you want to get a bed sitter nowadays, you have to part with 1.5 million, mm-hmm, just for you to put in Airbnb and for you to give you 3,000 a day. Okay, that is okay. It's a feasible business to me. But what I wanted to say is, it is the role of the government. It has I'll say, is a stakeholder in this housing thing, because how are we going to make sure that we are bringing down the cost of housing in Kenya?
Okay, Wakili, we've seen MPs, different MPs like Wamushomba, define their party position. We also have seen some MPs like Jalango, you know, define their party positions. I mean, and actually ODM is actually going to take disciplinary action against their members of parliament. I mean, what do you take of this? What's your take on that?
I think that, you know, party positions should be something that when it's a party position, it must be a party position. But, you know, I fault people when they want to force some things down the throat of people. Like, you want this because it's a party position, let's do it. Yeah. Yes. What I believe that should be done is that once you are an MP because of a party, it doesn't mean that now everything that is thrown in parliament you must really vote for it the same way the party wants it. I'm thinking of a scenario where, yes, we have party positions, but we allow people, especially who are representing people, to come and say, this is what my constituents want. They don't want this bill. Or my constituents say, this bill is not bad, but can we be able to amend it in some way? Instead of having us say, because this is a function of government, let us vote in this manner without actually having to have a choice.
Yeah.
Personal choice.
Yeah, Eric, as you conclude,
just before we conclude, let me just take you back to the 1.5 housing tax. Let's just call it a tax because it's actually a tax, and what it is going to do to our businesses and our investments. The finance bill says that you as an employee is going to contribute 1.5% of your salary, and then the employer is going to contribute another 1.5.
It was amended.
It's actually 1.5,
To make
down from 3%.
Okay.
So what this means, Hope Media, which employs Kennedy Kimani and probably 100 others, is going to incur an expense for all their employees. You know, what is that going to do to our businesses? You know, either the business is going to shut down or it's going to lay off, and we're going to be in a very big mess. You know,
I do not think 1.5% has ability of bringing down huge institutions. You know, 1.5% is meant to, you know, when the employer pays 1.5 and you as the employee pays 1.5.
You are the same people who are talking about the hustler nation. So what is going to happen to startups?
Okay, gentlemen, as you conclude, you've veered off the question I was to ask you. As you conclude now, we do not have time. Do you think we are going to have a parliament that is independent from the executive? Because many of the time, even in the previous regime, we've seen parliamentarians vote how the executive want things to be done. Are we going to see an independent parliament soon?
It's going to be very hard, to see an independent parliament from history. And this is not an exception. We saw when the president came into power, one of the things he did was to make an impromptu visit to parliament in a time when they were supposed to make very, very serious decisions.
All right.
And we're going to have, it is not going to be different. So we're not going to have an independent parliament.
Not very soon.
Not very soon.
Do you think the finance bill...
Not even 30 years from now.
30 years from now?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah. I mean, do you think the finance bill is going to pass tomorrow?
Well, looking at the caliber of leaders we have, I mean, it's either they have no idea what they are doing, or if they have an idea of what they are doing, they do not care about the people, you know? So
is it going to pass or not?
Most probably it's going to pass because they do not have the people at heart.
Do you want it to get through the third reading?
I actually do not want. Actually, I don't even know what it is doing in.
So you're against the bill in totality?
I am in totality against the bill.
Wakili, your thoughts on that?
I have only one correct answer. That, you know, the eventuality of everything lies with the parliament. The parliament, of course, you understand who are the majority. The life of that bill depends on the votes that are going to be dropped that day.
So the tyranny of numbers.
Basically. Because,
all right.
Because you and I understand that, you know, the parliament is made of factions, and these factions, you know, they are competing, they have competing interests. But now the only one thing that is going to happen to this bill is it is going to pass.
It's going to pass. Do you want it to pass?
I personally do not have anything wrong with it because, you know, a bill that is going to make, the LPG be zero rated. I mean, we are achieving that the manifesto of the government used to say they want to bring down the cost of LPG to, I think, 300 or something.
All right, I guess that's a good point to end it
this
there. Because of time, we do not have time. Eric has said that the bill is very oppressive, and Wakili has said that the bill is
punitive taxes.
It's balanced. All right, thank you so much, gentlemen, for gracing It's the first episode of the Dialogue Key, and we hope to have you in the future conversations as we have a dialogue on matters or news that matter to Kenyans. All right, that has been Erick Mukono, a political analyst and also an economist, and Tony Towett, the advocate of the High Court.